Electric Cafe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. This is album number 2 on my focus month on downtempo albums from the 1990s. This is Fila Brazilia's debut album from 1994 called Old Codes, New Chaos. So Fila Brazillia formed in Yorkshire, UK, 1990. Steve Kobe and David Macheri, I believe is his name. Really strong remixers too. Like if you were listening to electronic music in the 90s, a lot of downtempo, Fila Brazillia did a lot of great remixes. They were featured on Pork Recordings, which was one of my favorite downtempo labels in the 90s. Pork Recordings had a lot of great artists, a lot of great 12 inches, and they blended a little bit of like urban style downtempo with a little bit of sometimes a little bit of drum and bass, lounge, and sometimes even a little bit of house music as well. And Fila Brazillia, I mean, they did 7 albums in the 90s, and all are really good albums. I figured for this particular focus month, I'd start off with their first album. I do have all 7 of their CDs through the 90s. But strangely enough, I kind of fell out of following them as the 90s kind of went on, and haven't heard any of their stuff after I think about 1999. I think was their 7th album. And this is a really strong album. This is really good stuff. I mean, there's left field on here. There's house music. There's down tempo. It's kind of made at a time when down tempo in electronic music was still forming, that kind of like 91 and 94. Yeah, there's quite a few of these tracks, if I'm not mistaken. Well, I know the track like Mermaids, for example, I think that was made in 1991 or 92. So considering this came out in 94, it does have a little bit of a patchy, recording about it, because there's probably different tracks recorded at different times and mixed at certain times. So maybe one track's from 1991, maybe one track's from 1993. So not too far off, but there's a lot of growth during that time from 91 or maybe even 1990 when they started recording to this came out in 1994. That's a big difference in recording and mastering, if you consider those years and what came out and what they probably have been working on and their experience and things like that. So sometimes when I see an album that's, maybe there's a single out in 1992 and then their album kind of came out in 1994, I figure they're still working on the album during that time. So sometimes the recording of those tracks are just done at a different time, maybe even done at a different studio. One's done at home, one's done with somebody else. Like there's different things that it's not like they went into a studio and they made all these tracks in the same studio, recorded the same studio, mixed down in the same studio, and it was all done in like 3 months, and they all did it together. All the band members were in the room, and the album sounds really tight all together. It sounds really great, and all the tracks, fidelity-wise and maybe dynamically, and just the quality of the music is very similar. And when you get a track like this, that's just back in the 90s, that's how it is. But it is worth mentioning that it is a little bit of a patchy kind of recording in some ways, because certain tracks feel maybe a little bit, it's a very raw album. It's very early on in especially in house music. And ambient house was popular around 91. That's like probably the most famous track on here is called Mermaids, which was released as a single. I think it was reissued, I think about 2 years ago, because it's just a classic ambient house track. It's one of my favorite tracks on here. I really like the song called The Sheriff, which I think is quintessential down-tempo kind of urban feel, kind of that blends that little bit of jazziness with lounge and maybe even a slight break beat. But in this particular track, it's got a little bit of break beat in there. It's just smooth, but definitely what I look for a lot of times when I look for good downtempo music, I want to feel that chill out sound, that kind of relaxing, kind of everyday music, the kind of music you want to chill out to, like during the day. It doesn't necessarily have to be music for the night or music for the next day or something like that, or some come down music or something, but just kind of music that you can relax to and listen to in the back and, drive put on and have a good drive to, and just kind of be background music. Like I look for that. I look for that a lot in down tempo music. I like to hear the angle on just their sort of version of chill out music, because a lot of down tempo it kind of blends into chill out music, especially in the 1990s. Again, my favorite tracks is The Sheriff. Mermaids is a close second. I really love the ambient track Serratia. I believe it's called pronounced Serratia Marcescens, which I think is a drug reference, because the track's all about the early LSD testing in the 50s with the army and stuff like that. I'm sure a lot of people know that kind of story and stuff like that, and it plays in the background a lot of the samples of some of those some of the army guys, like the lieutenants, talking about the testing, and some of the actual privates, and you know, what their effects they're feeling and stuff. But just a great melody in it, really, really classy stuff. And then a couple of the other tracks, Brazilification is a really good one, and also The Light of Jesus, which kind of goes a little bit into a little bit of a techno. It's kind of got a housey techno beat, and the strings are really nice, and it's just a kind of a fun track, and just kind of has a kind of corny sample of, you know, saying the light of Jesus, and it just kind of becomes the hook of the track. But just a really solid album overall. The beats are really catchy, beautiful ambient track in here. It's kind of surrounded by 4 tracks that are like under 2 minutes, and they all kind of have a little bit of charm to them, but I don't know if they really help the album so much. But, you know, there's only 8 tracks on it besides that, but they're very long tracks. This is a very long CD. In fact, track called Fila Funk is around like 18 minutes. I'm not sure why it's that long. It's still a really good track. I really like it, but I don't know. It's just kind of a long track, and then there's 4 ambient tracks sort of surrounding it, different parts of the album. So it's just kind of a long album. It almost feels like compilation, and that's kind of why I think that some tracks were recorded during different times, and then they sort of pieced this album together with what they had and put out this album. When you compare this album to the other Fila Brazillia albums, those are much more cohesive, and they feel more like a genuine product, where this kind of feels like a compilation feel, or a gathering of singles. And it makes sense, because that's kind of what Mermaids is. But I necessarily wouldn't take any points away from the interesting cohesiveness or the recording of the tracks, but it just kind of is what it is. The tracks kind of speak for themselves. Again, do I think this album is the best Fila Brazillia album? We'll see, you know. But this is their first one. A lot of memories with this CD, and you know, this kind of set the tone for a lot of recordings on Pork Recording, and definitely influenced Ninja Tunes and a lot of other Compost records, and a lot of other Shadow records, a lot of other record labels as well, I'm sure, because Fila Brazillia was kind of that artist that kind of was a little bit everywhere, because they did so many remixes during the 90s, and they're almost like synonymous with chill out artists of that period, like some of my favorite, like Irresistible Force, which I know he remixed, Fish Dances, and which is one of my favorite remixes. And, you know, it's just some of the remix work of Fila Brazillia is almost as much of it as there's like 7 albums worth of material in the 90s. They did just a ton of remixes, and they're just really classy remixes as well. Steve Kobe and David McSherry, just legends of downtempo for sure. I mean, Fila Brazillia is one of the best. But you'll see my scores on each track, and if you haven't heard this album, I'd love to know your thoughts about it. And you know, if you'd like to play along and score them along with me. I didn't necessarily rate the 4 smaller tracks. I just rated the big ones, but the major 8 tracks. But you'll still see my scores on, or I'll still play the tracks, so you can kind of hear the album if you haven't heard this album before. But if there's an album you know, out there that you'd like me to review, electronic music related, just send me an email. My email's down below in the notes section. I would be curious to know what you'd like me to review for a future video.